How's it going, everybody? It's Parallax Abstraction, and this is the Geek Bravado Ramble. It is a Saturday afternoon when I'm recording this, and well, I was too lazy to make my own, so cheers. Still not bad, you know. And yeah, I made a bit of a grievous error before I sat down to record today. So in the part of Ottawa that I live, there are a bunch of awesome food trucks nearby that I like to partake in sometimes on the weekend. And I went to this one place today, and they had a homemade macaroni and cheese that had pulled pork mixed in with it. And it was really, really good, but I can also not guarantee that I will get through this without dying on camera. So if that happens, tell my girlfriend and my mom and my friends that I love them all very much, and that I died in bliss, at least. So anyway, yes, we are here to do my sort of usual E3 annual post-show wrap-up thing. So this one's going to be a little different than they have been in the past, because usually I would talk about the show from sort of a high concept view, you know, top-down sort of deal. High concept, yeah, that's nothing that I talk about. But I also would tend to talk about games that interested me and whatnot. But there's things are a little different this year. So myself, along with Ramblecast host Chris Cesarano and various friends of ours, actually did the sort of giant bomb thing of talking over all of the E3 press conferences live as they progressed. So there's a link up right now that will take you to a YouTube playlist. I archived all of those live streams, and they're all up on my channel right now. Most of them got copyright claims against them. Thank you, Nintendo and music industry. Assholes. But they're all up there nonetheless for your viewing pleasure. So if you want to see our reactions, and we do a little pre- and post-game analysis thing on each show as well to get an idea of what we thought of individual titles, go ahead and check that out. That was a lot of work, but that was also a ton of fun doing that. I really enjoyed it, and we had a decent number of viewers in the scope of my Twitch channel watching those things, so it went pretty well. I hope we can do that again in the future. That was really cool. In addition to that, we also did a Ramblecast episode, sort of a wrap-up thing where we talked about a few games that we were interested in. As of when this will probably go up, Chris Cesarano hasn't finished editing it yet, but click on the link that you should see on screen right now or in the description below to go to the Ramblecast. That episode will go up on that page when he's done with it. And really, listen to the Ramblecast anyway. I'm on that show fairly often, and it's a really good discussion show that Chris puts together. It deserves more listens than it gets, so take a listen to that. So yeah, so I'm going to talk about E3 in more of a sort of global context this year rather than individual titles. And all I got to say, like many other people, is holy shit did E3 come back with a vengeance. After a couple of years that I thought were okay, but which were, you know, kind of down, and especially in those years when a lot of people were really wondering if big AAA console-style gaming had much of a future. It seemed kind of a downer. There was some cool stuff to come out of it, but nothing that really wowed people to a significant degree. That completely changed this year. Just about every press conference had interesting stuff in it. There was a whole bunch of new IPs announced this year. Not as many as I or many others would have probably liked, but there were a lot of new IPs this year. Sony just, holy shit, man. They should have just walked out with like 9 mics in 2 hands and just dropped them all at once, because that show was just big announcement drop after drop after drop after drop, and just they sort of appeased everything that the hardcore, you know, group of fans out there have been saying they've been clamoring for. And it's going to make next year interesting, because all those big, you know, fantasy things that fans wanted, you know, The Last Guardian, the Final Fantasy VII Remake, Shenmue 3, all of that happened this year, so the barrel's kind of empty now. So they kind of raised the bar for themselves next year, I think. It's going to be a hell of a thing. I'm not going to say who won E3, because I think that's kind of a dumb metric, because it's very subjective. What I will say is that gamers won. I really think we did. It really doesn't matter what platform you have, what type of genre you're interested in. There's something coming for everyone. I'm in a very fortunate position where I own a good gaming PC and all of the current consoles. But if you're someone who can only own one of them, there's lots of stuff to look forward to. You know, even if you own a struggling platform like the Wii U, Nintendo showed a lot of interesting stuff. There's been a lot of controversy over the Nintendo press conference, particularly that the Metroid announcement was, you know, some weird co-op arena shooter, which, Yeah, I would have liked a Metroid Prime on the Wii U. I still think we might get one someday, but I don't know. I thought that looked kind of cool, to be honest with you. And apparently Iwata was like apologizing in Japanese for that Nintendo event, and I was like, why are people so mad? I thought that event was pretty good. I thought it was better than a lot of the ones Nintendo has done before. I think they have a great lineup. Even that new Star Fox looks pretty good. I don't know. I mean, people are going to be pissed about everything, right? But yeah, it's really, I thought there was a lot of good stuff to see. And really, whatever your platform of choice is, it's going to be interesting. The two big themes that I think came out of E3 this year were, well, unfortunately, a lot of what was talked about is stuff that's not coming till next year. Some people have joked that the E3 2015 was the year, you know, big theme was the year 2016. I don't necessarily think that's true. There is actually, when you really look at it, there is a lot of big stuff coming before the end of this year. Like, my fall this year is going to be pretty damn jammed. I don't know when I'm going to find time for all this stuff. And I think 2015 is going to be a pretty good year as well. It's going to be mostly from a third-party perspective. A lot of the really cool first-party stuff that we saw, especially from Sony, I don't know if any of the cool first-party Sony stuff is coming this year, at least on the AAA end. I think it might all be next year. But, you know, big games take a long time to make, and the buzz for a long time in the last couple of years of the last console generation was that a lot of publishers were holding back because there was all that buzz out there that, oh, consoles are dead, AAA is dead, everything's going to go to mobile, blah, 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 and a lot of people weren't sure if that was true. And to be honest, there was some anecdotal evidence that showed there was cause for worry. And people were the publishers were sort of holding back and waiting to see if these new machines sold before they decided to invest in that space again. And well, the new machines are actually doing very well. As I understand it, both of them, meaning the Xbox One and the PS4, are both doing better than their previous generation counterparts had by this point in their life cycle. So needless to say, it looks like people definitely do want this stuff, and companies are finally starting to say, all right, you know, let's open the wallet and get some big projects out there. That's why we're seeing a lot of these new IPs from Sony, new IPs from Ubisoft, a couple from EA, not really. EA was probably the big disappointment of this time. Square Enix looks like they're going crazy. They've got a huge, amazing Western lineup coming. And while the Capcoms and the Konamis of the world look like they're basically exiting big video games, Square is not only doubling down on big games, they're doubling down on big Japanese games. They announced a ton of new JRPG stuff at their conference. They announced that they've created a new studio that's literally called Tokyo RPG Factory that is working on a brand new original IP JRPG. Not a Final Fantasy game, not a spin-off, nothing. They confirmed that. It is a 100% original IP from a new dedicated JRPG studio. Yeah, everyone else, all the other Japanese companies seem to be like, oh, we don't know about this, but Square's like, no, bring it. And I think that's amazing, and I really hope that pays off for them. I truly do. Yeah, and we had a couple of interesting things on the press front this year. This was the first year that Bethesda did a press conference, arguably one of the better ones out there, because it was just game, 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 game. There was very little filler. And they showed a bunch of great stuff. I mean, Fallout 4 looks amazing. Doom looks amazing. Dishonored 2 looks amazing. Really, the only thing in that conference that didn't interest me, well, two things. Elder Scrolls Online, because whatever, but I'm over MMOs. And Battlecry just maybe has potential, but that game looks rough right now. Real rough. So, but it's also a ways away, I think. So they did pretty well. The PC Gaming Show... Holy fuck balls, man, was that long. Like, Chris Cesarano had to leave because he was falling asleep. Sean Clauser and I stayed till the end. I really like the fact that they are dedicating a press conference to PC gaming. I think that's a good thing. I think Day 9 actually did a really good job hosting it, given the material he had. Sorry if you're hearing weird noises here. My dog is on his bed chewing on a bone. I think he did really good, but there was just too much material. There was too much talk and not enough show. I understand that AMD was sponsoring it, and I didn't mind the fact that there was a big actually two big advertising segments for the new AMD Radeon cards coming. I think the segment with their CEO, I think she actually did a great job. I think that's the only segment there should have been. I think that should have been cut down, and I think it should have been much more like a traditional press conference where the dev comes out, he talks for 30 seconds to a minute and shows footage, not talks for 5 minutes and then shows 30 seconds of footage. There was just too much of that. And I understand that, you know, it's first press conference up, and it wasn't done by a particular publisher or platform holder, so they probably had to make a lot of deals to make this happen, a lot of deals with a lot of demands and stuff. But the thing was close to 3 hours, and that's just too long. It should be half that. So, but I hope they take those lessons to heart. I hope they do it again. The response has been mixed, but there has been a lot of response. Like, people seem to really dig that it existed, and it got a lot of views. So I hope it does well for them, and I hope they learn and sort of bring that stuff more in line next year. I will be there next year to watch it for sure. And there was some cool stuff there. There was some new footage of games that I'm really excited for. That was actually the only conference where they showed real gameplay from Deus Ex Mankind Divided, which just, in my eye sockets right now. God, I want that game. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I actually saw a bunch of trailers for different indie games that interested me too. Giant Bomb this year was most of the trailers they were putting up during the show were of indie games, and I think their reasoning for that was that you could find the AAA trailers kind of anywhere, so they wanted to focus other stuff that other people weren't. And I actually saw some really cool stuff coming. One of my favorite small developers, Shin'en Multimedia, is actually coming out with what looks like an F-Zero clone for the Wii U. That it's a really generic name. It's called like Fast Racing Future or something like that, but it looks really, really good actually. And I saw a couple of games that kind of look like shmups with spins on them, which I thought looked really interesting. And there was a survival game. I can't remember what it was, but there was a survival game. Solus, I think is what it was called, but it actually looked like a survival game that took place on like a weird hostile alien world where you were sent there to help try to save humanity or something like that, and that looked actually really interesting. And obviously the other big elephant of this year's E3 was VR and AR, so the Oculus Rift, Microsoft HoloLens, Project Morpheus. And apparently, I didn't know this happened, but apparently Starbreeze Studios, of all people, bought some company in Europe that was working on VR as well, and they have something called Star VR, which I guess its main selling point is that it has a much wider field of view than the other ones. Which, who'd have thought those guys would get into the VR arena, but it's really interesting. Obviously, we have the Vive from Valve and HTC coming this year as well, though that did not make an appearance at E3, at least not on site. And it's interesting. I will admit here, I've been very skeptical of VR, but I also will admit I have never tried it. I've never had the opportunity. A friend of mine actually borrowed an Oculus DK2 a while back, but I couldn't get enough time to go over there and put the thing on my head and see how it is. And I'm not discounting the hype for this. I do think some of this is, ooh, the new hotness, but at the same time, there are so many people of you know, various different persuasions talking about this in such an enthusiastic, revelatory fashion that there's obviously something to that. So clearly VR is a big deal for some people. I am still very skeptical as to whether or not it will get mainstream appeal for a few reasons. Number one, as we already know from E3, you can't demo it. There's literally no way to show off VR at a press conference. You have to put a thing on your head to be able to understand how it works. And that's going to be a really, really big problem. Like, how do you get the main... These things have lots of niche implications. You know, hardcore gamers get it. There are a lot of implications for this stuff, particularly HoloLens, in like museum settings or medical settings, or people are saying there's real potential for VR to be used for PTSD treatment, which I think is really amazing. There's all these sort of specialized applications, and they can find success there, but if these things really want to justify, like if Oculus wants to justify its $2 billion, was it $2 billion? I can't remember, some stupid amount of money that Facebook paid for them, this thing has to hit the mainstream. And the only way you can do that, and this is even a lot of the podcasts I listen to said this too, is you can't get it until you try it. Well, how do you do that? Sure, you can put kiosks and pop-up stores everywhere, and I'm sure that's part of the plan. But again, you've got to get people in, you've got to convince them that paying a lot of money to put this big thing on their head is going to be worthwhile for them in a mainstream context, and that is going to be a really hard sell. And I'm sure these companies will hire some incredible marketing people to work with them, but I really wonder how that's going to work. I think that's going to be a really tough sell. And the fact of the matter is, these things are going to be expensive, and yes, the requirement for The hardware requirements for them will come down over time, or rather technology will get cheaper. But right now, Oculus has said that you basically need a high-end gaming PC to even use the thing. Like, I have a Core i7 2600K that's heavily overclocked and a GTX 970. That's apparently scraping the bottom for the Oculus. That's just enough to make it usable, not even necessarily good. And obviously with the PS4, that thing's got dated graphics hardware in it already, so unless the Morpheus comes with a box that has another GPU in it, I don't know how they're going to drive that well, especially considering that apparently in order to not get sick in the thing, constant frame rate is extremely important, and frankly, a lot of games that have come out on the new consoles are struggling with frame rate a lot already, so I don't know how that's going to work. Those are big problems that they have to solve. Obviously, these guys are all aware of it. They all have a lot of money and very smart people working on it, so hopefully they're working on this. And these are long plays. I understand that if these things don't succeed in a year, they're not going to say, well, VR is another stupid fad, out the window it goes. That's not how it's going to happen, but it is a big problem that they need to solve. And I really don't know how you do that, especially from the demo perspective. You know, they were able to demo HoloLens at the Microsoft press conference, though there was a lot of smoke and mirrors. It was an actual live demo that they were able to show. You can't do that with VR. You could even demo 3D, kind of, and you can't do that with VR. So, I don't know. I'm still skeptical, but I hope it works out. It could be really cool. And if these things come out and are as good as people are saying they are, I really hope I have the money to afford one. And I hope we don't have another format war coming, because there's already at least 3 systems, actually 4 if you count the Morpheus, vying for consumer attention. And I really hope there isn't compatibility. I hope they all work together. So we'll see what happens. But everyone was talking about that constantly for this show. So it's clearly a big deal. And I really hope I get to try it soon, because it looks cool. But it was also very refreshing this year not to see less bullshit outrage, but it getting taken less seriously. E3 last year was insufferable, with the usual suspects who make hay out of everything that doesn't need it in order to get attention and money. I'm not going to name names. You know who these people are, but the simple fact of the matter is that these people may believe in what they're saying, but the main reason they're doing this is they are not interested in real change. They are interested in picking on whatever's popular, because picking on whatever's popular gets them the most attention and the most donations. You know, forget the fact that a lot of these people already promised things to their donators that they haven't nearly come close to providing yet. They did it with Witcher 3 before for no other reason than Witcher 3 was popular, and this year, in addition to their normal rhetoric, they're also trying to go all Jack Thompson on us again, and once again make the argument that, oh, this stuff is also violent, and this is encouraging violence. And I'm like, is that really a road that you people want to go down? Do you know what happened to Jack Thompson when he tried to make that argument? Frankly, I kind of want them to keep doing that, but that's the thing. You know, there's been a bunch of pushback in the usual circles about this stuff, but you know what? I had a realization the other day. I was getting annoyed, seeing the usual outrage stories and clickbaity articles about this kind of stuff, and I was starting to get really ticked off about it. But you know what I realized shortly thereafter is I was watching a bunch of people sort of pushing back against this, and also noticing that even some of the people who would normally be very strongly on the side of these individuals who are making all this noise, even some of them are going, whoa, okay, you're pushing a little too hard here, back off, and you're starting to get a little ridiculous here. And the thing that I've realized is, you know what? Keep yelling. Keep complaining. Keep making hay out of every tiny little remotely popular thing that comes out. And you know why? It's very simple. It's becoming very obvious when you look around that people are getting tired of this. Outrage fatigue is starting to set in. And some people, it's very slowly, gradually increasing, but it is increasing. A lot of people are beginning to realize exactly what these individuals are doing, and that it's probably not necessarily in the interest of a real cause so much as their own cause. And people are starting to get tired of it. And the more these people complain, the more games they target, the more people are going to go, you know what, I didn't care when you complained about that game, but I really like this game. You know, you're attacking Doom, you're attacking Fallout. Well, I didn't care about The Witcher, but I care about these. In just a minute, I got a problem with what you're saying. So the more games they attack, the more people they will get to counter them, and the more they just continue to go on and complain and complain and complain, the more people will get tired of it. And, you know, so, you know what I say? Keep pushing your faux outrage, keep stoking outrage culture, keep writing those clickbait articles, because the more you do it, the more people are going to tire of it, and the more people tire of it, the more your influence shrinks, which is exactly what we need. As I have said before, I think there are major problems in gaming when it comes to representation and the way certain things are portrayed and whatnot that should be dealt with. I think the number of female protagonists that we saw at E3 this year is a big indication that the industry is starting to learn, and I think that's great. I think a lot of those games with a lot of those protagonists looked really excellent, and I can't wait to play them. I think this stuff needs to be dealt with. As I've said before, these people and their way of approaching this cause are hurting it. They are not helping it. They are doing no one any favors but themselves, and frankly, I think a lot of them know it. And they are hurting any legitimate fight that might be in there, and there are legitimate fights to be had. And the sooner these people burn themselves out, and the sooner their followers wake up and learn to think for themselves, the better we all are, to be honest with you. And I think that's good for everybody. So yeah, keep yelling, keep bitching, because the more you do, the less people are going to care, and that's exactly what we need. So yeah. But really, even as someone who enjoys E3 in general, just because, you know, I know it's a big marketing event, and the thing is, marketing only works if you don't know you're being marketed to. And I do know I'm being marketed to. For me, I just treat E3 like a big information dump. I just take all the info in because I love video games and I love hearing about new ones and more about existing ones. And that's what you get. If you watch E3 just from that context, through that lens, you just get a massive amount of info dumped on you. And I really love that. You know, I've learned a ton about a bunch of stuff that's coming that I'm really interested in. And the fact that it was a marketing event doesn't bother me, because I can see through that. And, you know, before E3 this year, we had the usual crop of supposed enthusiast press who do nothing but whine about how much work E3 is, and how, you know, just cynically moaning about what a tired event it is and isn't relevant and blah, blah, blah. Seriously, Super Bunny Hop, dude. I don't always agree with you, but I like your content. But that video about E3 where you not only tore into the show, but anyone who likes it as being, you know, marketing pawns, like, seriously, dude, learn to love video games again. Like, people are not as dumb as you think they are, and you really need to understand that you can watch E3 and enjoy it and not be a prisoner of marketing. Like, I don't know, man. Like, if you're going to make videos about video games, you should maybe actually enjoy them. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, and the usual crop of journalists going blah, 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 but this show really countered a lot of that. I saw so many people, including people who are very cynical about it this year, going, you know what, E3 was amazing this year. Many people are saying it's been the best E3 in years. A few have even said it's the best E3 ever, which is a really impressive bar. And that's really good. I'm really glad to see that the industry has realized that consumers do want big stuff. They do love big stuff. They're stepping up. They're throwing money back in the pot. They're starting to try new ideas. Yeah, not as many as we'd like, because video games are still really expensive and there's too many public companies involved in this stuff, but they are trying, and there's cool stuff coming. You know, we've got new technology, not just new games coming. It looks like companies have finally learned how to take advantage of the new consoles and really make the graphical, well-running fidelity games that people expected out of these things. They don't just look like mildly better last-gen games with terrible frame rates. Some of these games look truly next generation, and I think that's great, because that's going to push PC gaming forward as well. If the console tech improves, PC tech will improve in lockstep. So that's always a real benefit. And like I said, regardless of your platform or even the genre you're in, I think it's a great time to be a fan of video games, and there is a ton of stuff coming. I really love this year's E3. I hope we get more like this. I hope it can continue to deliver on this level, but I have to say the bar was set so high this year, that may be a tough call. But you know what? We needed a big blowout year like this. People needed a reason to be excited about big gaming again, and it seems they are. And that makes me very happy as a fan of big games. So, but yeah, I'd like to know what you guys thought of E3. I mean, if you don't have the many hours necessary to watch all of our streams, yeah, let's chat about it. What games did you see that you like? Are you interested in VR or AR? Did you like what you saw? Are you over E3? You know, do you still think of E3 in a cynical way? Don't be shy. Speak up about that, because I'd like to hear what people think about it. And maybe I'm not an optimist with a lot of things, frankly, but when it comes to E3, maybe I just am overly optimistic. I don't know. But I'd love to chat about this, so feel free to leave something and let's do that. And yeah, please, if you're interested, check out the Ramblecast and Friends yak over the E3 press conferences. Like I said, that was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. And the podcast is going to be coming soon as well, so you can listen to that. And yeah, E3 was a lot of fun this year. I'm glad I took this week off work so I could really take it all in, and hope we see more. So thank you guys very much for watching. If you did like what you saw here, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. That does help me out a great deal. And please check out the blog entries too if you can. They are much more condensed, well-written, polished versions of these Ramble videos. And I keep the blog. I could just do video stuff like this with less work, but I write the blog as well as an exercise to keep my writing skills up. And it'd be nice if that could get more hits too, because I put a lot of work into that. So that'd be really cool. And yeah, there's more content coming soon. There's retro flashbacks coming soon. I swear to God, that series of Westerado Double Barreled I promised a long time ago is going to happen. It's just been crazy lately, but I really do hope to do that. But yeah, more stuff coming soon. So thank you guys. Whoop, my monitor just went to sleep. I guess that's telling me to get out of here. So thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Take it easy, guys.